Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we try to cut through some of the noise
Exactly. Unpack the sources, find those crucial insights.
and hopefully get you, our listener, truly well informed.
Hmm.
So today, our mission is to dig into some pretty significant statements.
Recent ones, yeah. About the ongoing ceasefire negotiations.
That's right. And the source we're looking at today is called Excerpts from President's Stance on Ceasefire Negotiations. So diving right in, there's this one phrase that really jumped out at me. I imagine it did for a lot of people.
Which one was that?
The president saying he was waiting to see, and this is the quote, whether or not people come to their senses.
Ah, yes. That one. It's quite a loaded phrase, isn't it?
It feels like it, almost like a challenge. What's your initial take on that specific wording, especially, in high-stakes diplomacy?
Well, what's really fascinating, I think, is the strategic gamble that's sort of embedded in phrasing like that.
Gamble. How so?
When a leader says they're waiting for others to come to their senses, it really redefines the negotiation, doesn't it? It strongly implies a belief, from the speaker's view anyway, that the other side is acting irrationally or, against their own best interests.
Right. So it's less about finding common ground and more about waiting for capitulation.
In a way, yeah. It's a very clear signal of firm expectation. It basically says, look, our position is the sensible one, and the ball's completely in your court to agree with us. And while, yes, it projects strength, unwavering resolve, perhaps.
There's a risk.
There's absolutely a risk. It could easily harden the other side's position, make them dig in their heels.
Because you're essentially calling them irrational.
Exactly. Instead of acknowledging they might just have different, maybe even legitimate objectives, it kind of shifts things away from mutual problem solving towards more of a distributive bargaining stance, where one side tries to maximize their gain by painting the other side as just plain wrong.
That's a really crucial point, the risk of hardening positions instead of, fostering some kind of compromise. It definitely paints a picture of conviction, maybe inflexibility.
Could be interpreted that way, yes.
But then there's this other detail from the same source, the same statement.
Okay.
It says the president also would not commit to calling for a ceasefire as negotiations continue.
Right. That's the other key piece.
How do we interpret that alongside this come to their senses rhetoric? What's the strategic implication of that non-commitment for you listening to understand?
Well, this non-commitment is, I'd say, equally significant, maybe even more so. And it tells us a lot about the strategic posture, refusing to commit to a ceasefire while talks are actively underway. But a pretty powerful form of coercive diplomacy.
Coercive diplomacy. Okay. Explain that a bit.
It signals a clear intent to maintain leverage, to keep the pressure on.
So not easing up.
Not easing up. It suggests that the current conditions on the ground, maybe militarily, maybe politically, are seen as favorable enough to continue as is.
Or perhaps that the administration believes committing to a ceasefire too soon might actually undermine the specific goals they're chasing in those talks.
So it's not just keeping options open. It's more deliberate.
Oh, absolutely deliberate. It's a clear signal that the negotiations themselves are the path to resolution, and that getting to a ceasefire is directly tied to the outcome of those talks.
Not just an independent humanitarian cause.
Precisely, not separate from the political track. Understanding that nuance helps explain why such a stance might be taken, even when, humanitarian concerns are obviously very high. It's a calculated move.
Aimed at securing specific political or strategic gains.
That seems to be the implication, yes.
Right. So we have this strong language implying the other side needs a reality check, you could say. And then on the other hand, this deliberate refusal to ease the pressure by committing to a ceasefire.
They seem to work together in a way.
Yeah. And our goal here, as always, is just to distill what was actually said, look at the potential implications. Right. Without taking sides or endorsing anything.
Exactly. So you can stay fully informed and make up your own mind. So just to quickly recap what we've unpacked from these statements today. First, there was the president's remark about waiting for parties to, quote, come to their senses.
Which we explored as, well, a kind of high-stakes diplomatic gamble, asserting a position of perceived rationality.
Right. And potentially risky. And second, that really impactful non-commitment to calling for a ceasefire while negotiations are ongoing.
Yeah, signaling a deliberate strategic choice there, maintaining leverage, keeping pressure on within the diplomatic process itself.
Okay, so if we step back for a second, what's a final thought here, connecting this to the bigger picture?
Well, maybe something for you to consider is just how critical precise language and sometimes even strategic silences, like not committing to something, how critical these things are in shaping perception.
Public perception, international perception.
Both, really. How people understand these incredibly complex diplomatic processes. Every single word, or even a word that's deliberately not said, it can be a tool of negotiation, a signal of intent, maybe even a calculated risk. It shapes the whole trajectory of events sometimes.
It really does. It's a good reminder to pay close attention. We really encourage you to reflect on how deeply understanding even short, specific statements like these
Illuminates so much more.
Yeah, can illuminate these broader global events and all their nuances, this kind of careful analysis, looking closely at the source.
That's what lets you cut through the noise.
Exactly. Cut through the noise and really start to grasp the complexities of the world around us.